and sell it for free. You might even win a Samsung tablet, Amazon gift cards, and other cool prizes. BuySellMakeOffer.com is the future of online selling. You can use Skype to talk to your buyer or seller. Plus, you can use video to showcase your items. BuySellMakeOffer.com.
Monsanto has met a cultural power it cannot intimidate, censor, buy off, or escape from. I'll tell you who it is today on Hightower Radio.
Like to spend a few days in another world? Then write this down. Golden Bear Cottages, Big Bear Lake. Now, listen, this is not some corporate-owned operation. It's family-owned and operated by some real nice people. Unique? Oh, you bet. Golden Bear Cottages features 28 one-of-a-kind cabins on a 5-acre historic site. Great for families, couples, and groups. And cabins are available with 1 to 7 bedrooms. Golden Bear Cottages is just a stone's throw from Big Bear Lake and super close to 3 great ski areas. Now, I could go on all day about Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear, but to see everything, just go to goldenbear.net. Again, goldenbear.net. Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear. Clean, comfortable, and affordable. Check them out. goldenbear.net.
What have I learned so far? I've learned that there is no one path that's right for everyone. I've learned that without my high school diploma, I can only do so much. My options were limited. I found a free personalized learning program with Learn for Life that is a flexible schedule so I could keep my job while earning my high school diploma. I found new career training opportunities that would jumpstart my future. What have I learned so far? I've learned that I can change my life.
Are you 14 to 19 years old and looking for a free high school diploma program with flexible meeting times? This program allows you to keep your job or important family responsibilities while earning your high school diploma. If you've fallen behind on credits or dropped out of school completely, get back on track with free tutoring, a caring faculty, and one-on-one attention. For more information on how to reach your graduation goal, visit learnforlife.org. That's LEARN, the number 4, LIFE.org. Or enroll today by calling 877-360-LEARN. That's 877-360-LEARN.
Is your radio station dull and boring like most corporate-owned stations on the dial? Then it's time to tune to KCAA 1050 AM. It will blow your mind and maybe expand it too. KCAA is your independently owned go-to station in the Inland Empire. It's a veritable cornucopia of crazy, an assemblage of awesome and cool, and it's a little weird too. KCAA pumps out more local and national radio each week than most major networks while offering CNBC business news headlines during the week and NBC sports news on weekends. KCAA is unique, interesting, quirky, and sometimes outlandishly crazy, which adds up to a high volume of awesome. And for you audiophiles, KCAA delivers FM sound quality to our transmitter, which is why KCAA is the best-sounding AM station on the dial. So make your day with KCAA and find us online at kcaaradio.com. KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Bob Vila here with my home improvement tip of the day. Has a pint-sized major league prospect in your neighborhood recently hit a home run through your bedroom window? Here are some tips for fixing it. Once you have your gloves and goggles on, remove the broken shards by pulling them toward you. That way, if a shard breaks, the splinters will go the other way. Scrape and sand the frame of the sash where the new pane will fit. Then run a bead of latex caulk around the frame. That'll provide a good cushion for the glass and also help make the window weather tight. To help you position the glass, just grasp a short length of duct tape in the middle, forming a tab. Then stick the tape onto the glass. That'll function as a temporary handle. Once you have the new pane in place, open your glazing compound. Remove a lump with your putty knife. Then roll it on a flat surface until it looks like a length of rope. Set it next to the edge of the glass and use the putty knife to smooth it out. Once you add a few more lengths of glazing compound around the window, you'll be done. Get more info at bobvila.com and right here at home with me, Bob Vila.
Monsanto has met a cultural power it cannot intimidate, censor, buy off, or escape from. I'll tell you who it is today on Hightower Radio.
Weeds. It seems like they never stop, but you can put weeds in their place with Chateau herbicide. Year after year, Chateau delivers reliable control of a broad spectrum of weeds and excellent crop safety in over 50 crops. 50 crops. Chateau gives you long-lasting residual control of more than 90 annual broadleaf weeds and grasses. It even controls tough weeds like fiddleneck, mare's tail, fleabane, fillory, and Italian ryegrass. Plus, Chateau offers excellent rotational flexibility, so you can use it in fallow beds while keeping your options open to plant cotton, corn, rice, wheat, tomatoes, and more. And Chateau has staying power to last through extreme weather conditions without leaching or liftoff. It's time to show weeds who's boss. Take control and keep control with Chateau herbicide. To learn more about Chateau, talk to your PCA or Valent sales representative or visit us at valent.com/chateau. Always read and follow label instructions.
Other talk stations use words like savage. Sounds brutal. Hey, it's all good. Your superstation, AM 1050, News Talk KCAA.
Do you have a broken window or rock chip on your vehicle that needs repair? Give us a call at HM Auto Glass, 951-858-5190. HM Auto Glass is your locally owned and operated auto glass specialist, offering low cost and high quality auto glass repair and replacement. We also work with all major insurance companies and offer free mobile service. So call us, 951-858-5190. That number again is 951-858-5190.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay.
Every Thursday night at 7 on KCAA, NBC News Radio, AM 1050.
The other station claims to be local. Since when is Glendale local? KCAA News Talk 1050, your true local station.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. To be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay on ubnradio.com.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon. Here out of the Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California. And on Thursdays, my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, KCAA AM 1050. Thursdays at 7 p.m. for your pleasurable commute home. And it is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no CNN, no constantly negative news, no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kardashian talk at all. No, we are focused on your reality life because that's all that matters, and we want you to be happy 88% of the time. And if you've missed any of my shows, I think we're all to 170. This is my 4th year on the air, celebrating 1 year syndication on CNBC, and we're just so grateful. And as of last week, added another network, GLN network out of Texas, adding a couple 100,000 listeners. So we're good. We're happy. We're grateful. And we are absolutely cheerleaders for your living, loving, laughing, and learning. And today we are talking with a very fascinating guest. You don't often hear these two terms put together, psychic and lawyer. And I was going to tell some lawyer jokes, but I won't do that. We have Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, who's a practicing medium who not only communicates with spirits, he's also a successful attorney, licensed to practice law in Florida, Washington, D.C., and before the United States Supreme Court. Mark graduated from Oxford University and at the College for Advancement of Psychic Science. Mark Anthony is a published author of the bestseller Never Letting Go, which is the definitive guide to healing grief and to help in getting help from the other side. His newest groundbreaking book, Evidence of Eternity, bridges the gap between the spiritual and the scientific. Without further ado, please welcome to my studio, Mark Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
It is so nice to be here. I love being back in LA, and it's awesome being on your show. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right into some definitions, because some of my listeners may not know. Well, I think they all know what a lawyer is, but
if you're lucky, you don't, but most people do.
Yeah. So on the psychic side, what is a psychic medium?
The term psychic tends to be a catch-all for people with sensitivity to frequency. In fact, back in the Victorian era and early part of the 20th century, we tended to be referred to as sensitives. And I think that's actually a more accurate term, whereas psychic means perception of things outside of the normal, let's say, 5 senses of sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch.
Mm-hmm. The one that sees people, sees dead people.
Well, that's a medium.
That's a medium.
And psychics tune into the energy of a person, place, or thing. So if you want to know what's going on in your love life or career, see a psychic. If you want to talk to dead people, you see a medium, because a medium tunes into a different frequency, if you will.
But you do both things.
My specialization and my strength and forte is with mediumship, communicating with spirits. But I do receive psychic impressions, because every medium is a psychic, although not every psychic is a medium.
Okay, so it's the bigger umbrella thing. And how the heck did you combine those two things?
They're both about evidence.
Okay.
And I've always been fascinated with the paranormal and the other side, because I was born into a family where this is generational. Both my mother and my father had these abilities. So when it emerged in me around the age of 4, they didn't chastise me or treat me like I was strange or weird. They were very nurturing about it. And I remember my mother saying, and my father sitting down and saying to me, Mark, it's okay. Just talk to us about it. Don't talk about it outside of the household, because people won't understand. And
what was the first thing that you made you talk to them? Like, what happened to you? Do you remember that? I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, I do. I start talking about my friends, all these people that were talking to me. And it's not unusual for a child to have, quote-unquote, imaginary invisible friends. But my mother started seeing that he's talking about some of our relatives who had passed. And since she was a medium, and my father was as well. And Dr. Marissa, my parents did not practice their psychic abilities in the commercial or public sense. My father was a NASA engineer. My mother was a commercial artist. Okay, we were mainstream America, and this was something that my mother had, and her grandmother and other folks on the Italian side of the family. And my dad's WASPy side of the family, he and one of his sisters, his mother, and his maternal grandmother. And in my research into both sides of my family, it goes back, I can track it back to before 1900, and I'm assuming that it goes farther than that. And in my new book, Evidence of Eternity, the reason I call it Evidence of Eternity is because if I just say, oh, there's another side, you have to back it up with facts, figures, data, and proof. And when I started seeing that there were people on both sides, and I started studying genetics, and let's say in my family a dominant trait is brown hair, brown eyes, but there are people in the family who have blue eyes, and occasionally there are people who are left-handed. That's a recessive trait. In other words, not one as typical. Psychic ability appears to be a recessive trait which runs on both sides of the family. So then when you have two parents who each have that recessive trait, then the likelihood of one of the offspring having that recessive trait increases exponentially. And
you didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice. It came with the package. So it made for an interesting childhood and a difficult teenage life, because I couldn't get away with anything because Mom and Dad were tuned in and knew what was going on with me.
No lying. They could see through the lying.
Yeah, I learned it was just easier to be honest with them, although parents don't always want to hear the truth.
Right. Yeah, I almost had a psychic boyfriend once, but he broke up with me before we met. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
I think that's great.
And if you're just tuning in, you are listening to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And today we do have Mark Anthony, who is the author of Evidence of Eternity and a psychic lawyer. And so let's look at this book for a second, because what did very much interest me was you say that you do have evidence that there is another side, that
yes.
when people die, they don't just die. And that interests me because I'm a big fan of the other side, and it's just a transition, and we don't really die.
Yes.
And we make way too much of a big deal about it. One of my teachers is Abraham Hicks through
yes.
Esther,
mm-hmm.
and you're familiar with
that?
Oh,
absolutely,
okay.
yes.
And so for me, of course we feel some loss, and of course we are sad because they're not in this dimension anymore. Like my father died when
yes.
he was 70 of lymphoma, but I know that he's really not dead. I feel his presence, and I know that, I'm going to be in that realm too. So this is a...
And I'm glad that the way you describe that is how it's a transference. And one of the premises of Evidence of Eternity is that faith and science are not mutually exclusive, but they're on the same... They're on the same page, and we're now getting to the point in our understanding of theoretical physics, quantum physics, string theory, quantum mechanics,
chaos theory,
exactly, and frequency. Our understanding of frequency since the time Marconi invented the radio back around, let's say, 1900, and now has literally come light years. And what every belief system has taught us since the time
That's
of
why I call
Krishna.
It BS.
Well, from Krishna, from Krishna through Buddha through Jesus all the way up till now, is that the soul pre-exists the body and then continues on after the body.
That's the correct BS. That's not. That's a belief. That's a correct belief.
Well,
system.
that is the belief system minus all the dogma and mythological. Trappings that seem to attach themselves to religions.
Yeah.
And the second law of thermodynamics and physics teaches us that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another.
Correct.
So drawing upon that, in addition to my own observations, scientific fact, quantum physics, human physiology, and theology, that was the genesis for Evidence of Eternity.
Okay, and you've had quite the positive response from this book.
It's an international bestseller. It's on sale in every country in the world that speaks English, and I understand the rights to it to be printed in both Polish and Slovak have just been acquired, and I'm hoping, if my publisher is listening, we're hoping for Spanish, because a lot of Latinos are very, very interested in this, and I know that I've had a lot of Asian fans, which is great. I'm so glad I'm on your show because in so much of the Asian mindset, in the philosophies, particularly with Buddhism and Taoism, there's a balance and a transference of energy. And I love the way the Buddhists look at the recycling of energy. They're tied right in with what quantum physics has been teaching us.
But insofar as hard data, I'm a scientist as well. So my father was a chemical engineer, PhD. So the criticism is heaven is a myth. Incarnation is a myth. There's no hard evidence for that. So how do you approach, or how do you answer that?
In my book's been endorsed by the top 3 near-death experience researchers in the world, and Dr. Kenneth Ring, who wrote the foreword to my book, and it was such an honor, especially when he and Dr. Raymond Moody called me up on the phone to chat. It's really great getting to know them and become friends with them. And
that would be like the Dalai Lama calling me up.
It would. Or, if you play, guitar, it's like Bruce Springsteen calling you up to say, hey, And what Dr. Ring told me, and he indicated in his foreword, he said, your observations and theories coincide with 40 years of survival of consciousness research. So what happened was, with the near-death experience researchers, particularly Dr. Jeffrey Long and Dr. Kenneth Ring, both of whom were, if if not atheists, then possibly agnostics.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't rule out the possibility of God. They wanted to see if there was an afterlife. So they took the scientific method of observing things in an objective environment, and in thousands and thousands of studies conducted in the past 40 years, the conclusion is that our consciousness survives physical death.
Mm-hmm.
Because particularly there's this one case where a woman who died in Japan. She went into the light and she encountered her sister. Now, one of the things that the near-death experience research all over the world, in a dozen plus countries, has indicated is that you only see people who have passed. So when she was resuscitated, she kept telling her parents, "I saw my sister, but how can that be? Because she's alive." And her mother started to weep and said, "Your sister was killed in a car accident yesterday." So the patient did not know this, yet encountered her sister. And I have done readings. I did a reading for this one woman. Actually, she works in my accountant's office, and I did a reading for her, and this man came through, and he had all these big dogs.
Did you want a bigger refund? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I'm always, I hope the IRS isn't watching, but I kept talking about this gentleman, and I described him to a T, and she said, I don't know anyone who's died that looks like that and has all these big dogs. She called me a week later and said, I didn't know, but my father's brother, my uncle, died about a week before, and we hadn't really heard from him for a while, and his wife called, and you described him. She said, that was my uncle. She said, you got his name, his dogs, what he looked like, and what he died from, so she didn't know that. And that's what I always like during a reading is when somebody that the client doesn't expect. If I can share one story, I was on a radio show, and I won't mention whose, but it was a national show, and the host was a real skeptic. And he said to me, he said, well, come on, do a reading on me. So I started doing a reading, and he's looking at me, and he turned, pun intended, white as a ghost. And he said, let's go to a station break. And as soon as we went off, he said, don't you say another word about that woman. I said, well, why? He said, my wife is listening to this broadcast, and that woman I had an affair with, and she died of a heart attack like 10 years ago. He goes, what are you trying to do to me? And I said, hey, I'm not doing anything to you.
You asked for a reading.
You asked for a reading, and it's not my fault you cheated on your wife. I said, now there is balance. So we went back and goes, okay, we're going to take calls from listeners now. and so you don't always know who's going to come through. And that's what I find so fascinating about what I do. And to me, every reading's a test, every reading's an adventure, and it's also proof of everlasting life. Because when you ask about being a scientist and looking for facts, as an evidential medium, I have to present facts. Like, see, you told me that your father had died of lymphoma at 70.
Right.
So, see, now I know that.
Right.
Okay? But if I didn't know that, and I said there's a man coming through, and he looks to be like late 60s, early 70s, and I'm feeling like lumps in my throat, and I start giving you evidence and other facts about him, shared memories between the two of you.
Yeah, more than like what you would get on the internet. More than what you would get
right,
from
if I Googled you and said, okay, yeah, her father died and all this.
Yeah.
And so, because I do a lot of readings for celebrities, and I like it when they're phone readings and I don't know that the person's a celebrity, or if I do a reading for, let's say, a celebrity's family member and I don't know the connection to them and that particular person.
Right. All right, now you dropped earlier the G-bomb, God.
Yes.
So let's go there for a second. I'm spiritual. I'm not religious, so to speak. They say that people who are religious are trying to avoid going to hell, and people who are spiritual have already been there. So that's my definition.
My karma ran over your dogma.
Very good. Very good. So there are some who will say, well, so you have the skeptics, like you just mentioned, who are, if you don't, I don't see it, I don't believe it. And then you've got the religious dogmites who say, all of this woo stuff is magic, black magic. It's really not good faith. This really is not faith. This is made up. Trying to snake oil, I guess, is my best. What do you say to that? Like, how how do you place, or how do you see God fitting into all this?
Well, first off, to all the negative cynics, there's a difference between a skeptic and a cynic.
Okay.
A skeptic says, I don't know, and I don't necessarily believe, but I'm open-minded to proof. A cynic is, I don't believe it. My mind is closed. You're a fake. You're a fraud. You're a charlatan, and they flood their head. And it's funny because with the cynics, it's like a toddler that learns a word like cold reading, cold reading, cold reading. So they run around saying, you know how toddlers run around and say the same word over and over without understanding what it means. And that's how I look at them. And and there's a difference between people of faith and religious fanatics, and I forgive them. That's what I say to them, because all the faiths teach that we're spiritual beings having a temporary material world existence. And a lot of the dogmatic and fundamentalist religions, what happens is religion is supposed to be a path to God, but all too often it's hijacked by religious fanatics who want to further their own egotistical or political agendas, and therefore they turn it into a justification for anger, bigotry, hatred, and violence. And I always liked something that Gandhi said to a group of British generals. He said, I like your Christ, but I don't like you Christians because you don't act like you're Christ.
Yeah, there's a sect actually in the Catholic faith that practices Christ and not Christianity.
Yes,
and pure love.
Well, and religion can be a very beautiful thing. But what people need to understand, and this is one of the things that I go into great detail in Evidence of Eternity, is that God exists in spite of religion, but not because of religion. And that God is an infinite being, which we're all interconnected. God is not a white guy sitting on a throne with a scepter Santa, Emperor Constantine, a neurotic, insecure, smiting people for not,
needs anger management classes.
Yeah, and it's like, our God is a jealous God. Jealous of what? God is an energy, an intelligence that binds, connects everything and transcends space and time, and really is beyond our ability to completely comprehend, yet so easy for us to comprehend. For when you look in the eyes of someone who loves you, who truly loves you, that you love, and you see that spark, that glimmer that just touches you in a way that is beyond description. The way I'm looking at you now, that is a glimpse of God, because God is pure love, and there's nothing vengeful or neurotic or angry about that. And so God has no religion, but people want to
put it in a box.
Put it in a box and put a human face.
And it's understandable.
Of course it is.
Human beings, we like to know. We want to know definitively. Is it right, wrong, good, bad, black, white? What category does it go into?
Well, what you see shifts in the very conservative Catholic Church with Pope John Paul II, and more recently with Pope Francis. I mean, a lot of conservative Catholics got all bent out of shape because Pope Francis invited Muslims to the Vatican and prayed with them. And they're like, well, that's terrible. It's like, well, no, that's interfaith dialogue. It's like we all believe in God, but we have different paths. But why don't we all get on the same page, because God's about peace and love and understanding.
Yeah, in God's house there are many mansions, but mine's in the penthouse and yours is in the basement. So we want to get to a place where we're all at the same, we're all connected, and we all do absolutely love first and foremost. So there is a heaven, or what we want to call another place.
The other side.
Yes. And in that other side, did you go through a near-death experience yourself, and that's what spurred this on, or you were just curious as a scientist and wanted to do the evidence?
All of the above. When I was about 3, and I do remember this is one of those horrifically traumatic things. We were living in Orlando. My dad got a job in aerospace, so my family had moved from New Jersey to Orlando, and my dad was away on business, and I went into a convulsion, and I stopped breathing. And I remember my mother scooped me up and ran outside in front of the house, and she started crying, "My baby's dying, help me, somebody help me." And an off-duty fireman happened to be walking down the street, and he came over and he started doing chest compressions on me, and the ambulance got there, and they managed to resuscitate me on the way to the hospital. And in the interim, I remember seeing all this, and then I remember slipping into this strange light with these beings that the only thing I can describe them as, they kind of look like outlines of human beings, but they were like liquid. It was like, and now I've seen things like that before in my spiritual connection. You can call them angels or spirits, but at that age, I didn't have a cultural or religious significance to and I'll never forget that. And then all of a sudden I brought back, and I remember people screaming, and they're like, he's breathing, and they got me back.
Right.
And I remember that. And then my father has had 2 near-death experiences. One when he was a teenager in a car accident, and he said the next thing he knew, he was hovering about 30, 40 feet above, looking down at these cars and all these people pounding on his chest and trying to get him breathing. And another time, he was what they called a Navy frogman, which evolved into the Navy SEALs. Yeah. And he was on a dive, and he was about 150 feet deep. And all of a sudden his regulator clogged, and he started drowning. And he said he separated. And he said, I went into the light again, and I heard that voice, and they told him, no, not yet, Earl. You have to go back. And the interesting thing is, my dad, having been a teenager and an adult, in both circumstances, we've had long discussions about this. And he said that in both times, he said, I felt so good, so free-floating, and so much at peace that I wanted to go on. And in both times, he said the voice said, you have to go back. So that's what got me started on studying near-death experience and survival of consciousness, and then I saw the parallel between it and what I do as a medium. But the interesting thing about what I do as a medium in near-death experiences, those people come back. The ones I communicate with as a medium don't, so they get to tell us a little bit more about
what was it like on the other side.
What's it like?
And I'm not familiar with all the research, but it is pretty everyone agrees, right? Pretty much 88% people agree. They say the same things. There's a light. There may or may not be voices, but there's this feeling of peace and calm, and everything is joyous. There's that feeling of joyous. So there's a consistency in the reporting of all the people that have been to the other side.
Yes, there is.
So that is evidence based. What do you have numbers on that? Like how many people have had those experiences?
That I don't have readily available. I know the International Association of Near-Death Studies, IANS, does have that on their website, and it's changing all the time.
Right.
And not everybody that dies and gets resuscitated does, but the similarities. And Nancy Evans Bush, she's the president emeritus of the Near-Death Experience Association. She said that atheists who have an NDE, a near-death experience, don't believe in God. They know there's a God. And it's fascinating that atheists that come out of it all of a sudden say there is a God, but it's not the white guy sitting on the throne with the scepter. It's this incredible intelligence.
And an energy
and love
that lives through and expresses as us. And so that would just say, to anybody who, in your definition of a cynic, who's going to say, well, you're making it up, and you just want to sell books, and being a lawyer wasn't enough, and you just forgive them.
I forgive them because there's always hateful people, and that's just the way it is. There's always hateful people. There's always going to be shallow people, and there's always going to be people. And the way I look at atheism is you get out of something what you put into it. So if you put your faith in nothing, well, what do you expect you're going to get out of it? Something times zero equals zero.
Yeah. I grew up with an angry God in as a fundamental Baptist, which I always say is like a precursor to atheism.
That's interesting. An Asian Baptist?
Fundamental Baptist.
A fundamental Baptist.
Yes, I was. My father's mother was Buddhist. My father's father was Catholic. My mother's father was converted by Hudson Taylor in China and was just a general Christian preacher. And my mother's mother was Pentecostal. So, and then my mother was adopted by a Russian Jew. So I was brought up very confused.
Well, there's a screenplay right there.
But the understanding that I have, which sounds very close to what you have now, is, whether it's, faith is a choice in my mind. Whether it's true or not, it's my choice. So if I choose to believe, as Einstein says, the most important question that a human being has to answer in their lifetime is the universe friendly or not? And if I say the universe is not friendly or God is angry and punishing, then it's going to be a long haul. But if I choose instead to say that the universe is friendly and that there is a God who conspires for everything for my divine and best good, and that every experience that I have in life is a blessing and something that I can use to expand myself in this experience called life, it just makes life a whole lot more beautiful to me. So that choice makes sense for me. So going to I was just thinking about this yesterday. I guess you were coming into about my dad and how I have not done the practice of going to the gravesite since he died. I've just not been interested in it. Didn't want, because I know he's not there.
Yeah, that's just an empty shell.
It isn't.
It's just an empty shell.
And I used to also be very, on the anniversary or Father's Day, just go back and into that marinade of pain and sorrow and loss. And even that practice I've stopped because he was so much more than that last 8 months.
And you also evolved in your grieving. And in fact, I'm glad we're having this discussion because on my Facebook page, which is Mark Anthony, the Psychic Lawyer, I also have the Never Letting Go Grief Support Group. Never Letting Go is the title of my first book. And the premise is that you must let go of the sorrow associated with the death, but never let go of the love for the one who has died. And you just gave a perfect example. Well, some people get mired in their grief.
Yes,
and
I call it marinating.
They go from being a victim of grief to a volunteer, and then the grief takes on a life of their own, and it becomes their life.
Correct.
And grief is hell on earth. I don't believe in an eternal hell with a guy on a pitchfork and all. That's a bunch of medieval superstitious nonsense, and if I've offended anyone, oh well. But the fact of the matter is that hell is here on earth, and there's nothing we can do about the fact a loved one has died. What we can do about it is, as you have clearly done, change your perspective on death.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are here talking to Mark Anthony, the Psychic Lawyer, and it's time to thank the sponsors of today's episode. You can always be a sponsor for this show about hope and happiness 88% of the time by contacting me on all the myriad of ways. On Facebook, please friend me, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram. So many ways to get to Dr. Marissa and hope and happiness. So thank you to today's sponsors of today's show. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Peace in.
Are you tired of dealing with your loved one's addiction to drugs and or alcohol? Are you ready for a solid recovery program that is licensed by the state of California and CARF accredited, that is delivered by an experienced, professional, and caring staff that have a personal experience in recovery? Then call Anaheim Lighthouse at 877-959-5909. That's 1-877-959-5909 today to shine your life light again.
Do you want more life balance? Are you 88% happy with your health and well-being, your relationships, your livelihood? If yes, do the Abundance. If no, and you'd like a life balance tune-up and align those head, heart, spark plugs and smog check the BS belief systems that are clogging your lifelines, contact Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura, at www.4balance.org for a session on the air or a private one on the beach.
And we're back. Welcome to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday on UBN Radio out of the Sunset Gower Studios, and Thursday on CNBC News Radio Channel AM 1050. And today we are blessed to have Mark Anthony, the Psychic Lawyer. Yes, sounds very oxymoronic, but it is true. He is a psychic medium as well as a successful lawyer. And we've been talking about heaven and hell and life here and there. And so if you've missed any of it, tune in on Thursday or go on my YouTube. All of my shows there, since we got these beautiful cameras in the studio, are here, as well as iTunes, and you can catch me there. And Mark Anthony. So as a psychic medium, and you know stuff, I mean, you know stuff that is beyond your senses. Is there ever a time when you know something that is unpleasant or fear generating, or let's say you know something's going to happen to that person and they're going to transition soon, or someone is going to do something bad to them. What is the code of ethics on what you say and what you don't say?
I think it's very important not to jump to assumptions and conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a cable TV show, and I won't say who it was, but the host was a medium, and she asked me to do readings for the audience, and I was drawn to this one woman, and I said, there's a male coming through, very conservative, flat top, and I'm seeing a big shiny badge on him, and she said, well, my father was a police officer.
Okay.
And I said, and I'm hearing the word shots. Well, the other medium sprang up on her feet, and she said, I hear shots too. He was shot and killed in the line of duty. And before I could say anything, the audience member said, well, no, he was in a bar with his friends doing tequila shots, and he got a heart attack and dropped dead. And the other medium goes, oh my God, and I explained that it's very easy to hear shots and let your mind fill in the blank that because he was a police officer, therefore, when you hear shots, he must have been shot. And it's important not to jump to conclusions. So I will tell people what I see, but I try to avoid editorializing about it. I was in Houston recently on a book tour, and I was in front of about 100 people, and I did a reading on this real big guy. I mean, he was a big guy. And I kept saying, I'm seeing bats, the creature a bat. That's kind of a strange thing. And as I keep seeing bats, and he's looking at me, he goes, no, nothing with bats. And his wife was next to him, and she was real sweet and very petite. And I said, you sure? Because your grandfather is talking about bats. No. And so, all right, let it go. Well, then 2 days later, I get this email from him. And it was so funny because as soon as I opened it up, he said, I was the big fella. And I knew exactly who this was when he said the big fella, because I'm 6'1". I'm looking up. He was like 6'5". This guy was huge. And he indicated in his email that he had a terrible phobia of bats. And I thought, oh, I got it. He goes, but there's more. And I blank you not that when I came home, there was a bat flying around in my house. And he said, and I screamed and I ran. And I'm thinking this huge guy screamed. He ran on my house. My wife had to catch it. And so she's running around with the towel, and she finally caught the bat and brought it out. And he said, I wouldn't go near the house until my wife, who was like half his size, caught the bat. And then he wrote, please do not send any more bats at me. And I responded, I do not inflict biblical plagues of frogs, locusts, or in this case, bats upon anybody. And
you just see it.
I just
saw it. You don't control it. You don't voodoo doll it.
I don't. And in fact, in Chapter 1 of Evidence of Eternity, which is entitled Spiritual Situational Awareness, and in Evidence of Eternity, I introduce new terms and concepts to redefine spirit communication in the 21st century, because too many of our terms have been coined in the Victorian era, where our understanding of spirit communication, I talk about multiple meaning messages, frequency beacons, the levels of the other side, the collective consciousness disconnect. There's a whole slew of new terms. In fact, I refer to spirit communication as interdimensional communication.
That would make sense.
That's what we're doing.
Does it ever scare you?
Never.
When you get that feeling, or you know something, it doesn't feel. How does it manifest? Like, do you get flushed? Do you where do you see it up here? Different all the time?
I see things, hear things, and feel things.
Okay.
In fact, last night when I was here with my manager, we were out to dinner with a member of a celebrity family, and so I can't say who. And all of a sudden, I got this tingling sensation. And it's like cold chills going up down my spine. And what it is, a spirit is pure consciousness. So their energy is interphasing with mine, and I receive an electrical physiological response, which is similar to the flight or fight response of the cold chills. That's why a lot of people, when they encounter a spiritual entity, feel and conclude and make the assumption that it's negative, because they're getting that electrophysical response, as opposed to recognizing, oh, a spirit's around.
Okay. Do you feel any now?
I always feel something.
You all... Well, I didn't ask about that. But Do you feel
this is a
any...
G-rated show.
Yeah, today is next week is last week wasn't a G-rated show. But I mean, seriously, do you feel I know we're not going to do a reading, but do you feel anything in here? I feel something.
Well, what I like about this particular studio, and I have been here before for other shows, is it's really got a good energy. And it's nice because there's a lot of spiritually themed shows here, and so matter retains energy. And when the energy is good, you get a good vibe. When the energy is negative, you get a bad vibe. Ergo, that's where haunted houses come from. Okay. If there's a murder or a traumatic event, it's like an echo. And it doesn't necessarily mean that a sentient entity is there. And sometimes a haunting is no more a spiritual entity than an echo is a human voice.
Have you been to John of God in
I am
Abyssinia?
I am aware of him, but I have not been to him. He's a fascinating person. So I've done a lot of study. There's a TV show that we have in development known as The Psychic Explorer, and because I've traveled all around the world from the Far East to Europe to South America, Central America, and other places, on a quest, if you will, to develop evidence of the afterlife from varying cultures. And that's why John of God, I've studied about him. Also, a lot of the sites in Europe, like Medjugorje and Lourdes and Fatima, have had fascinating things. India is a treasure trove of metaphysical experiences. In South America, and I write about this in Evidence of Eternity on the chapter on interdimensional communication, I witnessed an exorcism by a witch doctor in the Amazonian jungle, and that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool, and something I'm going to write about in my next book is when I visited Machu Picchu with a voodoo high priestess, and she did a whole ceremony at the Temple of the Sun at night, and that was quite the the only thing missing from that was Shirley MacLaine and a UFO full of aliens. It was a pretty cool experience.
I'm going to ask you a personal question. Are you married, girlfriend? Relationships?
I'm currently single.
You're currently single. Have any of your past girlfriends been uncomfortable with this psychic part of you? Is that what broke you up?
Did you ever see the movie Hereafter?
Yes.
With Brad Pitt?
Yes.
Out of all the movies about psychics, his interpersonal relationships and how they can go wrong, I felt that was the most accurate, because a lot of people want readings, and in that movie, this woman that he was dating wanted a reading, and her father came through who had molested her as a child and then dropped him like a ton of bricks. So there are some people who are afraid of this, and then others who they're a bit disingenuous because they're more of the groupie mentality. So I base my personal relationships on people getting to know me as Mark, as opposed to Mark the mystic or the psychic explorer or the lawyer. Yeah, I know. When I got out of law school, I remember my professors telling me, they say, "Oh, watch out." And what people don't realize is when you graduate from law school, when they give you your degree, they do not give you a trust fund with it. So people immediately assume that because you're a lawyer, you're somehow rolling in dough. You know?
Well, it's an interesting, because lawyer has its own reaction to it, and then psychic medium is it's almost diametrically opposes a reaction, so you don't know where to go with it.
People don't, but both are predicated on evidence and on helping people. As an attorney, I help people through some of the most horrific things. I mean, losing a child, getting arrested. I mean, there's all types of things. And people blame lawyers for the woes of society. It's our clients who create the woes, and then they come to me and say, "Look, I have spent the last 20 years of my life as a criminal, a junkie, a wife beater, and a predator, and you need to fix it next Tuesday at 3:45 at my violation of probation hearing."
Right, yeah. The emphasis is not necessarily in the best place. So where do we get your book?
Evidence of Eternity is on sale worldwide at all fine bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, independent bookstores. You can purchase it online at walmart.com, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, and I understand now on ebay.com. All so right. I have arrived.
Wonderful. And Mark, you've been kind enough to offer a signed copy of the book for a lucky Asian Oprah listener. So the first one to go to my Facebook page and like Dr. Marissa will be the proud owner of a free Evidence of Eternity signed copy of the book. All right. And thank you for mine and look forward to reading it all. Any last words that you would like to give Dr. Marissa listeners about anything?
When you lose a loved one, it is a road nobody wants to take, but it is a journey that we are all forced down at some point in our life. And you have to realize that this is part of our material world existence. And I always turn to Mother Teresa for inspiration because she said that God never gives me more than I can handle. But I just wish God didn't trust me so much. So when you are crushed under the weight of grief and sadness, remember that memories are the stars in the dark night of sorrow, and that turn to your faith, turn to your family, to your friends. Don't go through this alone. And you can always go to my website, evidenceofeternity.com, and there's a grief management page with a number of resources, coping techniques, everything which is available and free for people how to get through the grieving process. If you would like to make a connection with your loved one, on the book or reading section, most of the readings I do are actually over the telephone. My clientele is worldwide. And that's an important therapeutic step on the journey through grief if that is something that you're open to and feel will help you.
Wonderful. Well, we actually have 2 minutes before I go into Balance Bar. Is there anything you'd like to tell me, not necessarily in a reading way, but anything that you see about me that you...
You know, the interesting thing, I know your dad's on the other side, but there is a male energy associated with you. And before we assume this is your dad, he is coming in, and where I'm perceiving him around you would be on that parent, aunt, uncle level. And I'm getting this man was, he had a lot like a burning sensation in his throat and in his upper lungs area, and it's seeping down. And burning sensations tend to mean like cancerous conditions. Okay, and I'm also getting like a real heavy smoker. So there was a male associated with you who was a real heavy smoker. And what I'm getting with him is this pain and pressure in the head, which is indicating to me that prior to passing, he was having a real hard time focusing and maintaining mental clarity. Does this resonate with you? And he's pulling my attention toward the end part of the month of October, very early part of November. So there could be a significant event connected to you, connected to him, between, let's say, October about 25th through about November 10th. So I'm getting something there. And there may be a big change for you coming in that time frame, is what I'm getting. It's toward the end of autumn.
Okay. Yeah, I'm running through the significant males in my life, and no one exactly matches that one.
That's okay, because a lot of things that come through in a reading. Does that make sense to you, Tony?
Oh, wow.
All right, Tony, go ahead. Go to the mic. All right.
Okay.
See, we were talking before, people we don't expect to come through. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh my.
It was, if I'm right, it was my grandfather who died in October of lung cancer because he was a 5 packs a day cigarette smoker.
Okay.
This is for those of you that's and Tony Sweet, who's operating as my sound engineer today, and he's the owner of Universal Broadcasting Network, and I love him. And he's here unusually because Jarvis is at his 50th father's...
excuse me,
Sorry.
are you having some type of issue with a motor vehicle or a car? because he's focusing on the front end of your car. I don't know if you need your tires aligned or had some work done on it recently. But
I do need to put
no.
air in a tire.
This is
that was probably her.
That's yours. See, they're double teaming me now. So I got your grandfather, and now I got your dad, the front end of your car. So what happens is I wish we had more time. They come in tandem. All right.
That's so funny.
So hold on. Your father, get your car fixed.
Oh, no, I'm buying a new car.
You're buying a new car.
Yes,
all right,
because mine had an unexpected $5,400 stop on the 110 North.
And your dad says that you don't, or excuse me, your grandfather says that you don't really need to worry so much about your romantic life because everything's falling into place.
Ooh, nice.
About time. He basically says, don't try so hard. He says a little aloof goes a real long way.
Oh, interesting.
I can play aloof.
Yeah. No, but hard's always good. I can't believe I just said that. Oh, so we are at the end of the show. Thank you so much, Mark Anthony, for coming on and enlightening us with Evidence-Based of Eternity, a book that is on sale everywhere, and some things that I did not know about lawyers and psychic mediums. So thank you so much. And we are at the end of the show now, which is time for the Balance Bar, where I let you know what's going on and how you can support this work called Hope and Happiness. And my little dling usually, yep. There we go. So the Balance Bar, let's see, August 8th is the date for my balance retreat on the beach. So in the spring, we are in Sedona, and in August, we'll be on the beach. So please go to my website for Balance for more information on that. Look forward to meeting you on the beach for that. And don't forget, 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa started its 5th year, July 1st. So you should be well on your way. If it's not too late to join, go to my website again and join that and get your certificate. So next week, we are doing another call-in episode with Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura. So if you'd like to have your life tires balanced and your critical thinking smog checked, please contact Jarvis Essex or myself, and we'll get you on the queue so you don't have to wait in line. And that's all for today's episode of Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. Remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Before the dawn, for I am weak, and he is strong.
The founder of a world-renowned symphony made up of children.
The Inland Empire's most heroic teacher.
The world-famous mixed martial arts hero, Baptiste Mansour.
The lady who's saving homeless kids in Redlands.
The Inland Empire has thousands of community, business, and kid heroes. Each week, we share their stories with you. Join us for My Awesome Empire and find out why the Inland Empire is so great.
Saturday afternoons at 5 p.m. on AM 1050 and KCAAradio.com.
This is Elaine McFadden inviting you to join me for Smart Health Talk on Thursdays, 4 to 5 p.m. right here on KCAA Radio 1050 AM. Smart Health Talk offers the kind of information that can save your life and save you money, making sure you're getting the biggest Smart Health bang for your buck. We'll keep you up to date on the latest in nutrition health and what it takes to keep your home safe for you and your family. Remember, tune in every Thursday, 4 to 5 p.m. for Smart Health Talk, KCAA Radio 1050 AM.
Is your radio station dull and boring like most corporate-owned stations on the dial? Then it's time to tune to KCAA 1050 AM. It will blow your mind and maybe expand it too. KCAA is your independently owned go-to station in the Inland Empire. It's a veritable cornucopia of crazy, an assemblage of awesome and cool, and it's a little weird too. KCAA pumps out more local and national radio each week than most major networks while offering CNBC business news headlines during the week and NBC sports news on weekends. KCAA is unique, interesting, quirky, and sometimes outlandishly crazy, which adds up to a high volume of awesome. And for you audiophiles, KCAA delivers FM sound quality to our transmitter, which is why KCAA is the best-sounding AM station on the dial. So make your day with KCAA and find us online at kcaaradio.com. KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 a.m., the station that leaves no listener behind.
Slam the door on FeePay. Forget everything you know about selling online because I'm here to tell you about a new and revolutionary way to buy and sell on the internet. BuySellMakeOffer.com is here to shake up the web. Tired of paying those outrageous fees? You'll never pay a fee with BuySellMakeOffer.com. For a monthly membership package starting at only $7.95, you can list and sell up to 50 items. That would cost you nearly $100 with the other guys. Go right now to BuySellMakeOffer.com and sign up today.